What's up, everyone? Josh White here. Have you ever seen somebody put the word air power underneath an Air Force related photo on social media? When I say air power, I mean it's spelled H-E-I-R power. Have you ever seen that? I have, and I think a few of you have too. The guy who came up with that phrase, who coined the phrase air power, is retired Chief Master Sergeant Bob Vasquez, who works at the Air Force Academy. Now, when I hear the word airman, this is the guy who I think of. He is an airman through and through. He's a chief's chief. He's an incredible leader, incredible author, a motivational speaker, and someone who truly has dedicated his life to the Air Force. Now, with most of my podcasts, I have 3 topics that I like to hit on that I discuss with whoever I'm interviewing beforehand. I sent that same form to Chief and he didn't fill it out. Why? Because he just does everything off the cuff, and you know what? I just let him do it. I just let him be the Chief Vasquez that we all know, and the conversation just went in a bunch of different ways that I think you will find highly entertaining and very inspirational. And then we wrap the conversation up by talking about one of his new books that's coming out hopefully next year. It's unreleased. It's called Beyond the Little Blue Book. Our current blue book, America's Air Force, A Profession of Arms. It's on all of our desktops and it lists all of our values. And Chief Vasquez's book, Beyond the Little Blue Book, goes in depth on each one of those values with a story from his life. And he's met presidents, famous authors such as Simon Sinek. So as soon as you see Beyond the Little Blue Book by Chief Bob Vasquez come out, definitely pick it up. In the meantime, I would buy So You Want to Be the Chief. That's one of his best works. And if you're an airman who's all in, then you need to read this book. But without further ado, this is the legendary Chief Bob Vasquez. Let's get after it.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Josh. I appreciate it. And thanks for saying all those good things. You said it just like I wrote it. Thank you for reading it properly, because some people just screw it up, you know. But anyway.
I nailed it.
I'm Chief Master Sergeant Retired Bob Vasquez. I produce shining stars for the United States of America. Now, let me tell you something about this place we call America. There's no place like this place, anywhere near this place. I've been serving for, in fact, I just went over 49 years. I'm thinking about making it a career. I'm not sure yet, but I'm kind of pushing toward that direction, you know. But interestingly, Josh, and today is the 1st of April, 2021. Today is my 30th anniversary of sewing on Chief Master Sergeant stripes. So wow. It's kind of it's an honor to be talking to anybody at my age, but it's really an honor to be talking to you because, you know, you're doing some great stuff. And by the way, I count you as a protege. So any success that you glean, you know, that you make, that's mine too. So
that's going on your EPR.
That's right. I'm looking forward to that last one. But I served 31 years on active duty, and I have been employed by the Air Force Academy since 2002, so 18 years, and I'm in my last year of service. I've got about 11 months left, and then I'm gonna pull the plug and grow my hair and a beard and all that kind of stuff that I always wanted to do, and revert back to my younger age, only a different color. But basically that's it. You know, I've been a musician. I served as a musician for 24 of my 31 active duty years in bands throughout the world. And I also was coming out at the NCO Academy at March Air Force Base in Riverside, California. I was senior enlisted advisor to the commander at Fairchild Air Force Base in Washington State. I went over to Europe, and I served with the band there for a little bit. And then I was the deputy director for family support at Ramstein for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, ending up as the superintendent of the, I guess it would have been the 86th Air Base Wing in Ramstein, Germany. So did a few things. I'm not sure that I did any of them well, but hey, you know, I served 31 years and then they threw me out. I'll tell you what, Josh, I loved it so much. And I still do. I'm blessed to have been picked up here at the Air Force Academy and doing the things that I've been doing for the last 18 years, developing leaders of character. But I love being on active duty. I'd go back in a second, although anytime I'm all in, all the time.
You're all in all the time. I love that. I love your catchphrases, these sayings that you've come up with that are a play on words where they sound the same, but they're spelled differently and they have a slightly different meaning. It's super clever. I love like that when I'm reading your books, you write in such a specific way that I can just picture you saying it. Like I'm picturing you speaking the book to me because you're just so clever with how you write. You're learning, but you're also laughing. You know what I mean? When you read your books, because you make it that way. You have that charm about yourself that you put into your writing. So I'm absolutely a huge fan of your books. You've sent a few of my airmen some books too. You just seem to be everywhere at once. Like it's like there's 10 of you out there, I feel like. And then when I see pictures of you, and I see pictures of you back when you're young, I'm like, holy cow, like you've met so many people in your life. It's almost unbelievable. You're pretty much a piece of walking Air Force history at this point.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say a piece of something else, but thank you for some people have said that to me. Okay. But yeah, sure. After almost 50 years of service, I've done a lot of stuff and really, Josh, it's a blessing. I have been so blessed. Now, let me tell you, I didn't come into the Air Force, and this is the 1st of February, 1972. I didn't come in because I was a patriot, I was a loyal guy or anything like that. In fact, it was the opposite. I was trying to avoid being drafted and going to Vietnam. And I had just gotten drafted. I got my draft number. And so I had a choice of what to do. And I decided, because I was on a scholarship at New Mexico State University for music, and I had a very good friend, Chuck Wilson. If you're out there, Chuck, I've been trying to find you for 40 years, man. I can't find you. But he had just graduated with his music degree a year before. And he had gotten into the Air Force Band at March Air Force Base in Riverside, California. And when I got my draft number, my draft notice, I called him. I said, can you get me in? And I was a bassoonist at the time, and they needed bassoonists, thank goodness. So I went out there and I auditioned, and they picked me up, and the rest is history. But I'll tell you what, I think we all go through this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but around the 3-year mark, most airmen get to the point of, I'm out of here. This sucks, for whatever, all of the structure, whatever it is, the discipline, all of that kind of stuff. I'm out. So I remember doing that at the 3-year mark. But then, and I was a buck sergeant. We didn't have senior airmen at the time. So I was a buck sergeant, and they offered me staff sergeant and $7,000 is a bonus to re-enlist. And I don't know what the numbers are, but $7,000 is a lot more than, if you
definitely
translate it, a lot more money, a lot of money. So I said, heck yeah, I can do that for another 4 years. So I did, but I hated it, man. They made me cut my hair. Can you believe that?
I
used to have this Freddie Fender thing going on, Yeah, so messed up. But the truth of it is that right around that time, I realized that the people I was serving with were exceptional people, one of a kind type people. I mean, these people, and this is, at the end of Vietnam. So we had some weird people in the Air Force, particularly in the band. And some of these people were, the ones that were drafted or about to get drafted left, which left the better people. And it's not that they were bad people. It was just a different purpose, So I found out, I realized that these people were willing to die for me, man. They didn't even know me, and they were willing to die for me. That's a different a level above anybody else,
Wow.
So the money, the stripe, and the realization that these are great people and I want to be a part of them kept me in. And here I am, 49 years later, I'm still all in.
Like you start to kind of lose the gas in the tank, but the mission seems to only get tougher as time goes on. There's more cadets, there's more challenges. So you're constantly having to change your approach. You're constantly having to switch up your teachings. or the class schedules, or, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot for an airman like you who's been getting after it for, you know, enough for 3 lifetimes. Holy cow. I think we've all been super.
And you guys keep changing the regs, man. Okay, you make it easier. But next time I see you, you're going to have a fro. You know, it's a different Air Force, Josh.
It
You know,
is.
we didn't put up with a lot of stuff that we do now, and I'm not dissing it. It's just evolution, I guess. You know, but
It is.
you know, as you get older, some things start to piss you off that didn't used to piss you off, and that means you're really old school. You know, and I know you heard of him, and you know him, Chief Bob Gaylor. He's my mentor, and he does those Wednesdays with the Chief or something podcast as well. And you know, we all get to that point where we think, you know, we think we know better, but what's really happened is things have changed, and we don't want to change. So, you know, again, I'm not going to get out of the Air Force because you can't take that out of me. You know, it's in my blood. But I'm starting to see things that I don't like, and probably at least because I don't like them. That's the only reason. Are they better for the force? Probably. And I think part of my struggle is keeping up with you. You know, not physically because I know I can't do that, but mentally because I'm constantly trying to stay at your level, you youngsters. But that takes a lot more work. It takes more brain cells to think about how would Josh, you know, I don't have it on, but I have a bracelet that says WW, what is it, JD, what would Josh do? Because I'm trying to figure you out, you know, and if I can do what you would do, then I'm okay, at least with the master sergeants, you know. The airmen are probably pissed off at you, Josh, because you're them.
Right. You know, I think, wow, you hit on a few things there. For one, I think you're always going to still connect with airmen no matter how much things change, because I noticed in your books, you hit on kind of universal truths, right? Like you hit on specific values that will never change. I'm telling you as a reader and someone who's only been in 16 years that all those things in your books, even the older ones, those all still apply. Those are all still fundamentals. They might be approached differently or discussed differently. There might be different topics or ways to discuss them. But at the end of the day, everything that I've read in your books, they still, I mean, they're golden. There's just golden nuggets throughout all those books. And then the other thing I want to touch on is that I think one of the reasons that I've been successful now is because I wasn't successful as an airman, like at all. I felt like I never really fit in with the culture. I wasn't sure if I was going to stand or not. So I've always felt like an oddball. And it's only now that I'm starting to feel comfortable in my own skin to kind of accept that I have a different approach. And I think that has served me really well in today's changing Air Force. So I'm glad that I hung in there.
And you know, my culture is based on the Toltec culture. We need to continue to strive, and a lot of people will say to discover yourself, but I think it's about rediscovering. I think we know who we are, and then somewhere along the way it gets I'm not sure that it gets taken away from us, but we give it up because we want to be something else. We want to fit in. We want to do what everybody else does. You know, we go through that process, that period, and then we start to rediscover which is where I'm at right now. Your roots, your culture, your blood. You know, the things that make you, your identity. And I'm not sure. I may tell you the day that I die, so call me the day that I die to tell you whether I reached it or not. But maybe that's the point where you find yourself. Maybe. I kind of feel like you don't. I think you continue on, and maybe there's another space somewhere, another dimension where you continue to find more of yourself, but or maybe even become yourself, whatever that may mean. But nonetheless, I think, you know, we all go through that, and if you can find at least a semblance of yourself, then you can start honing that. You can start, again, rediscovering it, redefining it, and feeling more comfortable, which I think that's what you just said. That's where you feel comfortable that you're you. And it'll really be more prominent when I'm retired and I don't work for the government anymore. But I studied with a gentleman by the name of Tom Boyd, one of my favorite mentors. And he told me it's a great place in life when you don't give a shit. And I'm about there. You know, I don't care about a lot of stuff that I used to care about. And I'm getting to where I don't care about a lot more things that I used to care about because now they're not important. Probably because they were important to somebody else who I thought was important to me. And I realized they don't even care about me. So why should I care?
Right.
But I think it's an evolution. You know, I think it's an evolution that we all go through. I, as a youngster, I know who I am, who I want to be. Then I give it up or I lose it. Somehow it's taken away. Then I rediscover it and then I become myself.
No,
and I'd write a book on that.
You're absolutely, no, that is exactly what happened with me. You know, you see someone successful that's not you. They're not anything like you, but they're successful. And you start to, that doubt is in your mind. Like, well, you know, this person's kind of a jerk at work and he's promoting and he's doing great. So maybe I should be more of a jerk then. Maybe I'm too nice. You know, it starts to get in your head a little bit.
Yeah.
And then,
well, and it depends on, and forgive me for interrupting you because that's one of my pet peeves, but if I'm doing it, it doesn't bother me.
No, go ahead.
I think the key there is what is success. You know, if you think of success as getting promoted, having cars or whatever, those external things, then I think you might look at people and say, oh, how do I do that? So I got a lot of stuff, but that's not really what I call success. That's just fun. You know, I've been, again, blessed to be able to get it. My success is when I can touch people like you, and I don't know how many proteges I have. I couldn't count them. I'm sure they're in the thousands. And I touch a lot of people in, I hope, ways that will help them become themselves. That's air power, HEIR power. So the more I create that, the more I produce that, the more successful, at least in my terms, I become. And, you know, I've done, I guess I started doing that probably as a master sergeant. I started figuring out that's what real success is. It's not all this stuff. It's fun to have all this stuff, but I don't need it. But what I do need, at least to be me, to maintain my identity, is to help others, is to create air power. So how do you think of success? And you know, again, it's easy to say that when you made chief, but what it meant for me was that I had more opportunities to help people. You know, even now, it's funny. My wife was in the hospital a couple of months ago, and I just got off the phone with one of my proteges, and he said, "Did they let you in to be with her?" I said, "Yeah. Don't you know who I am?" "Yeah, you're the chief." "That's right. I'm the chief." I walked into the hospital. They said, "You can't go in there." I said, "I'm the chief." I said, "Okay." It's amazing. And people will move out of the way when you tell them you're the chief. Now, don't go doing that, okay? You'll be impersonating a chief, and I think that's still in the reg. You're not allowed to do that.
That's still in the reg.
The value of being a chief is that I was able, and I'm still able, to help others. The title helps. It does. You know, when I called someplace, because I have done it even as a retiree, called an office on behalf of one of my proteges because they weren't taking care of them or something. And I said, "This is Chief Vasquez." "Oh, yes, sir. What can we do for you?" And then they do it. You know, if I said, "This is Mr. Vasquez," they would, who cares? Who cares? Who are you? So I don't use it specifically for that, but I'm not afraid to use that because, again, that's success. If I'm helping you, I'll do whatever I have to do to help you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't see myself as Master Sergeant White. I'm just trying to be the best airman, the best Josh White that I can be. But if I can use the Master Sergeant title to help somebody out, then absolutely I'm going to use that title then. So it's kind of like a tool in your arsenal. But it should never be something that you're just completely, fully reliant on or absorbed with. And I wasn't always like that. That's kind of me coming into my own skin and being comfortable being me. And that's when I just stopped looking at myself as a person with a rank. I just looked at myself as an airman at that point, an airman just like everybody else. And when, you know, with that mindset, I feel like I'm much more effective.
And again, that means I'll do whatever I have to do to take care of my people, regardless. I don't care whether it's people above me, below me, around me. It doesn't matter. They're my people, and I'll kill you.
Hey, if you got our back, we can do anything.
That's the bottom line.
I'll kill you. We're going to put that on your going away gift. So most people's impact, everyone has an impact in the Air Force, right? That impact could be a pebble in the ocean and there's a little bit of ripples. It could be a rock in the ocean. There's a little more ripples, right? Everyone has some impact. But Chief, I think you're a meteorite hitting the center of the Pacific for your impact.
Okay. I'll take that as a compliment.
It is.
I'm trying to lose some weight, Josh. Okay. I know you're giving me crap about that, but I'm working on that. Okay. As you're using that analogy about pebbles and rocks and meteors and all that kind of stuff, my intent is never to be a meteor. My intent is always to be that pebble. But those little things, that, for instance, all of us can have an impact on someone daily by saying hello to them. I call it acknowledging presence. They're there, and there's a really a great movie. Oh man, I can't think what women want. He could read women's, well, everybody's, I guess, their thoughts, and of course there's that the big story is about that, being able to do that and all that. But there's a secondary story in there where there's this young lady. We might call her a gopher because her job was to go for everything. She was just one of those people that she had a huge impact, but nobody even cared that she existed. In fact, and he starts hearing her thoughts. And if you remember, she starts to become suicidal. And near the end of the movie, he hears her say, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but basically, I'm going to go kill myself. And he goes out of his way to go find her. If I remember, it's like through storms and rain and all that kind of stuff to go find her because she's about to kill herself. Josh, and we have a problem, this, especially as a medic, with suicide in our country, especially in the military, particularly as airmen. We lost 100 people or so last year to suicide. That's one is too many. 100 is way, way more than we ever should or want to have. But there are people walking around your shop, your hospital, probably, I'll say probably, unfortunately, thinking about that. And I read this on Facebook, I can't remember, a couple of years ago, about a person who had commit or tried to commit suicide, but didn't do it, thank goodness. But she had this thought that she shared. It's not that I wanted to die. I just didn't want to live this life. The point in that is that we can affect that often by just saying hello. Because when we say hello to someone, or good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, that's saying, I appreciate that you're here at all. I'm acknowledging your presence. Now, as leaders, in particular, supervisors, whatever the term you want to use, I think there's value in acknowledging their presence, that they're there. That's number one. And acknowledging their presence, that they're a gift. What is my purpose in this life that I'm experiencing? And we can affect that in a positive way by doing that pebble thing. Just a little tiny thing. Good morning, Master Sergeant. That in itself can have a huge effect, especially if you're having a bad day. You're thinking, man, no one cares about me. Oh, there's a chief. He just said hello to me. He must care. All of a sudden, it's already changed. Now, I'm not saying that that's a solution for suicide. I'm not an expert in that. I'm just saying that for most of us, that could have an effect. Man, I don't want to live this life for whatever reason. But all of a sudden, Master Sergeant White comes over and says, good morning. Wow. The next question, the follow-up question is, how are you doing? Interesting, Josh, you may not even know this. How are you doing is a question. Most of the time you guys don't use it as a question, but it is a question, which a question creates an answer. How are you doing, Master Sergeant? Oh, not so good, Chief. Now I have a choice. Am I going to listen to you to tell me what's going on? Or I can do like you. How are you doing, Master Sergeant? Oh, not so good, Chief. Well, have a nice day anyway. you're not going to be very successful by any definition if you do that. And what I may, in fact, do by listening to you is, in a way, save your life, because I was about to commit suicide. I don't value myself. No one values me. The only way is out. I do not want to live this life. I really don't want to die, but I don't want to live this life. The only choice I have, it's not really the truth. The only choice I have is to go out. But here comes Master Sergeant White. I have a very close friend who I didn't know had issues with depression and all that kind of stuff, considered suicide several times, but he was a chief. The chief would never do that. Well, chiefs are people too. And, there's nothing wrong with going up, and it doesn't matter who, and saying, hello, good morning, how are you? And if you don't have time to listen for the answer, then maybe just good morning, good to see you. Now, what did you just say? I care. And I hope I'm glad I saw you. I just acknowledged your presence. Maybe not the presence part, the gift part, because we didn't get that far, but at least I acknowledged that you're here.
Yeah, we can't lose sight of the little things, right? Those little interactions. We definitely need to value the small things more, I think. The small things like, how are you? How are you doing? Taking 5 minutes to talk with your team. Ask what they did this past weekend. So I think that's what really resonated with me hearing you just now, was just that those little things can go a long way. And we should definitely keep that on our mind as we approach our teams.
And it starts with you, Josh, with me, with us, each individual. One of the things that I really have in my studies and my rediscovery of my culture and myself, my identity, I have, there's just this past month or so, I've learned to value solitude. And the way I've learned it is through books, reading Kent Nurburn. If you have the opportunity, read Kent Nurburn. He will blow your mind with some of his thoughts. But one of the tenets of my native culture is appreciating nature. And I'll tell you what, I've grown to love snow. When it's snowing up here, and like I said, I live at 7,500 feet. I live in the forest. And when it snows, the solitude is amazing, man. Everything shuts down. I mean, you can't hear anything but the snow. I mean, actually, you can't hear it, but I imagine that I can hear it. And what that does is that it reminds me of my place in the universe, which you talk about a speck, man. We're not even a speck in the universe, But this world, nature has some things that if we take the time to observe them and appreciate them, I think it makes us better. It makes us find ourselves sooner and maybe even deeper. But it reminds me of my place and the effect that I can have because I can quiet it all down. A lot of people get up running, man. Now, I used to do that. I was an overachiever, type A personality. I got up running, man. I sleep with my boots on, man. When we had BDU, you don't remember that uniform, but we had a BDU, and we had
that
like
uniform.
I said earlier, did you? My boots were like glass, man.
And
I wore them to bed just in case, the call came in at 2:00 in the morning. I'm ready. I'm out of here, all in. But, and actually, there was a time in my life where it took its toll, and that was not a good thing because it took its physical toll on me. But little by little and more, I'm realizing that's not it. This stuff is not important to do all that stuff. It's more important to be who I am. And again, the way, at least for me, that I'm trying to rediscover myself is through nature, enjoying like the last couple of days. Tomorrow is supposed to be 67 degrees or something like that here. It was 20 2 days ago, and it snowed. So I have that at one extreme to another extreme, but that's okay. It's okay. If I pay attention to all of that stuff. So start with you. Find what makes you, what gives you that opportunity, and slow down. First thing in the morning, slow down. I'm up at 0300 normally, and I drink my tea and watch Facebook to see if you sent me a note or something. I have my own ritual. I meditate, I pray a lot, I read a lot, But that's all about the first 2 hours, 3 hours or so. I work out. Those are all my time to help myself get to the place where I'm ready to go, to be all in. And I think a lot of times we forget that. We neglect that. I got to do this. I got to do this. Now, I don't have kids. There's a big difference. I know you have kids, and they will mess up your life, man. We ought to just outlaw kids. Okay, I'm kidding. Gosh, some congressman is going to hear that and say, hey, great idea. But so it's a little bit different. But even with your kids, one of the things that I'm often asked about is, how do you strike the balance, man? When you were on active duty, how did you strike the balance between your family life and your work life? Well, balance is not a 50-50 proposition. Balance in your life and work it's going to shift all the time. But when you have that opportunity to invest with your family, with your kids, and I know I've seen you on Facebook, you were just on the beach or somewhere. Of course, where you are, you have a lot of beach and a lot of beach time. Great. But don't carry your phone with you. If you got your phone with you, you're not investing yourself in the right thing. When you're with your family, put that stupid thing away. Or put it in the car in case of an emergency. You probably could use it for that. But don't be. I made Simon Sinek. I think is a friend of mine. I made a pact with him. Gosh, about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, that I would not carry my phone when I'm with Deb, and I don't. When I'm with her, and now she does, and that's fine because the girls, my daughters, call her. But when I'm with her, I don't carry it. I'm not going to do business. I'm not going to reply to your, sorry, I love you, Josh, but not that much. If you send me a text or something, I'll get to it when I get back. But I'm with her right now. That's my time with her. And I think that's balance. Whatever, I have 15 minutes with her, I'm all in. I have 3 minutes with her, I'm all in. My work, I'm all in. I got those hours that they pay me for. I'm all in for those hours. So consider that. Again, the point is, as you try to find yourself, as you try to develop your identity, be you first. Take the time that you need to be you first. You cannot give what you do not have. And you know that if your mind is on man, I'm sick, I'm feeling bad, I'm hurt, all of those bad things, you're not going to be 100% at work. You're not going to be all in, or your all in will not be enough. You know that. And as a leader, any leader, your airmen, your followers, they go through the same stuff. They got a life. They got issues at home. It's like I've always said this: if you're sick, if you work for me and you're sick, stay home. But what happens? No, man, I gotta be. I'm the chief. I gotta go in. No, you don't. In fact, you're going to infect everybody. Get the hell out of here.
I think you were ahead of your time.
And now you say I'm old? Is that what you mean? Is that what you? Be respectful, Josh. I'm like 5 times older than you.
No, what I mean is, you say you're sick now, and people are like, "Get the hell out of here." It's different time.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a story.
Okay.
To this day, if I don't hear from my daughters, I have one who's about to be 40 this year, and one who's 36, I guess. But if I don't hear from them somehow, first thing in the morning, I freak out. And my oldest daughter, Tesa, she's like me. She's an early bird, so she goes to work fairly early. This particular morning, and what I used to do is I'd call her or she'd call me. I don't hear from her, so I'm getting worried. So I call her up, and I don't know if you ever heard of Barry White. He's a singer, a real low baritone. But anyway, when she answers the phone, "Hey, Dad," she sounds just like Barry White. I said, "Baby, is this you?" She said, "Yeah." "Oh, man, you sound like crap." That I meant that as a compliment, okay? But anyway, "You sound like crap." "Oh, I'm sick." "Well, yeah, I can tell. Why don't you?" And she worked at a CDC on base, as a matter of fact. "Call in, baby. Tell them you're sick. You can't go into work." And I did, but we have something about ratio. Those are numbers. I don't do numbers, but we're out of ratio. We're in ratio. I don't know what it was. So I got to go in. "What?" "Yeah, I got to go in." "Oh, man, I'm so sorry, baby. Okay, I'll talk to you later." She is so sick, man. She goes into work, and guess what? All those little munchkins get sick from what the disease that she had, whatever it was, cold, I don't know, flu, whatever. Within a day or two, they're all sick. How much sense did that make to make her come into work sick to get the kids sick. If I had been a parent, I would have raised Cain, because, that was a stupid decision. But we do that, Josh. We do that. And I don't know, nowadays, I guess they call that toxic leadership. I don't think there's such a thing as toxic leadership. If it's a toxic environment, there's no leadership. But nonetheless, I think that's smart. Anybody that's listening to us, anybody that really is paying attention, if your people, whether they're airmen, civilians, I don't care who, if they're sick, make them stay home, because all they're going to do is get somebody else and everybody else sick. You're better off. Yeah, you might have to do twice the work today, but that's better than doing it like 5 times the work in the next week because everybody's out. So
yeah, you don't want to lose sight of the bigger picture and set your future up for 10 times worse problems.
Yeah.
So I want to, before I let you go here, I wanted to touch on your book, Beyond the Little Blue Book. Yeah. So I was hoping you could tell me, what was the inspiration behind that book?
It just so happens, and I wrote it a couple of years ago, Josh, but it hasn't been published for various reasons. We were having some issues. Not issues. My publisher got sick. Okay, that's basically it. So it'll probably be out this summer, which is okay because that's my last year on duty. And I hope it'll be my legacy for all the airmen out there. I don't plan to be, I think I may have said, I'm not going to quit working. Well, in fact, I'm going to do more of my work. I just won't have a job. There's a difference between a job and your work. My work is air power, and I intend to not have a job so that I can continue my work. So anyway, I think maybe the creator wanted it this way, that book will be out this summer, and people will start reading it, and maybe that'll be my legacy. But I call it Beyond the Little Blue Book because I don't think we invest enough time in talking or considering, having conversations, even lessons on integrity, service, and excellence. Those are powerful, man, and really they're our foundation. You know that they're our foundation. But if we don't think about them, if we don't talk about them, if we don't practice them, we're losing it. It's like all of these changes that are going on. I don't believe in change. I believe in progress. If the purpose of doing something different isn't integrity because it's the right thing to do, then it's failure, and we're going to fail. But we don't think about that, but we say that's our first core value, integrity first. Well, if it is, then let's practice it. Let's think about it. So anyway, what I did is I took the 3 core values and the 3 virtues within those core values, and I added 1 or 2 more, and just gave perspective and shared some stories about how it affected me, how I saw it, how I've observed it. I have several friends who have given me stories as well that are included, that all depict what the core values are all about. In all of my books, I think 90% of the feedback I get from my books is that people like my stories. And I try not to be prescriptive. I try to be descriptive, and that's to describe a concept instead of tell you, do this way or I'll kill you. That's old school. But I think the best way, and again, because of my culture, my people learned and shared their history through story. So it's I enjoy it, I appreciate it, and I hope I'm a decent storyteller. But the book really is just a bunch of stories. They all happen. They're all true. They may not have happened exactly the way I remembered them, but they're all true. And that's basically it, Josh. And my intent is that once it's published, any profits that I make on it, in fact, and I don't make a lot of profits because I give books away. I sell 1 and I give 2 away, which I paid for. So I'm not a very good businessman. So if anybody's out there wanting to be my manager, let me know, because I probably need you. But my intent, Josh, is that I'm going to put it out for sale because I think there's value in people paying for things. If you give people free stuff, eventually they don't value it. But if they pay for it, they value it a little bit more. I don't know what the cost will be. I have no idea. My publisher and I will get that figured out. But the profits will go to Air Force Aid Society. That's my way of giving back air power, HEIR power. that I know because I was in family support, so I know the value of Air Force Aid Society, and I was a first sergeant and then as chief and all that. There's huge value in that organization. So my intent is that any of the money that I make off of it above the and beyond the overhead, I'll give it to Air Force Aid Society to do whatever. I'll give it to Khalif and tell you, hey, Kay, do whatever you want with it. I don't care. I know you'll do the right thing. So back to integrity.
I absolutely love the book. I love that you took, the new little blue book, which is the profession of arms. And it's on all of our desktops now in the Air Force. And I took a look at that today, and it's got all of our values in that document. It's really well written. And then in your book, you're basically taking that same concept and using stories as an example as to why that value is important to us. Right. And I'm a storyteller too. And so I really appreciate the stories. I think some of the worst leaders I've ever met say that the Air Force is just a business. Don't take it personally. And I've always had the opposite approach. I think if you say that the Air Force is not personal, you're just lying to yourself.
Yeah.
It's the most personal job you'll ever have.
Yeah, but some people will not. Well, let me put it this way. I have heard people say that I'm 8 up with the Air Force. I'm not 8 up with it, Josh. I'm 8 through. That's my identity. That, like I said, that name that I have evolved into, Chief, that's who I am. That's my identity. And again, it didn't start this way. It just evolved in it. And again, through I think through rediscovery. But it's not that's the same for everybody. So I don't think we can blame anyone. We can't judge anyone. But again, it's about me. I take it personally. And whenever you take something personally, then I think my sense is that you're more willing to give to that cause, whatever it may be. I value, man, I value jazz music so much that I gave most of my life to playing it and to writing it. That was my identity at that time. It's evolved since then. So, but with the Air Force, the military, whatever it is that you do, and I write weekly essays. If you go on my Facebook page, called Power Pack Leadership Lessons, I wrote one that's actually in a book that I just published last year called Power Pack Leadership Lessons. It's on Apple Books, but it had to do with don't let your job become your identity, something to that effect. That's true. But again, there's a difference between a job and your work. My work is my identity. What I do, not the job, because the Air Force pays me to do a job, and everything that I told you today has nothing to do with that. Everything that I told you today has to do with my work, which is different, which is my identity, which is based on my values. And so far for the last 49 years, it's been the Air Force values. I hope that makes a little bit of sense.
Definitely. One thing that you keep driving home in the book, reading, you will always do what's most important to you at that moment. I was like, holy cow, like that is so true. Like it's really not just happening randomly. It's my decisions. And sometimes you're not always aware that you're even making that decision. And so you just kept driving that point home in that book. And I was like, it just kind of made me want to rethink my priorities, rethink my day. When I read that line, what made you come up with, you will always do what's most important to you at the moment?
I think that's a natural law. A while ago, you said a lot of stuff that I talk about, a lot of stuff that I write is really foundational to just being a human. And the reality of it is that whatever, like I often say, your values are always in your hands. Again, that's what you're going to do, what's most important. Case in point, what's most important to you right now at this moment?
My family.
Nope.
What is it?
Being with me. How do I know that? Where's your family, Josh?
They're downstairs
Yeah, you don't know where they are, right? What's most important to me right now is being with you. I have a pet. I told you I have my puppy. He's upstairs somewhere. I have no idea, with my wife, who I love deeply, but not as much as I love you right now, because I'm taking time out of our time, whatever that may be, to be with you. And I'm 100% with you. I'm all in. Now, when we're done here, I'll go upstairs and be all in with her and the dog. So those are choices. I can say, literally, I could say, see ya. I'm not going to do that for another 3 minutes, because then you have to start paying me overtime. And if you don't do that, I'm out.
Right.
So hey, it's about the money, right? Our values are always that way, Josh. Whatever it is, I don't have time for my family. Why? Because you choose something else, your work, whatever it may be. I don't have time to work out. Why? Because you choose something else. It's always a choice. Always. Even I feel I'm upset. Why? Because you choose to be upset. I'm happy. Why? Because you choose to be happy. It's all a choice. All a choice.
That's why I love that. I love that you point that out, because it's you forget that. You just think you're a product of your environment. You think that you're being forced to do things. You think that you don't have time for the things that, like working out or spending time with your family. But at the end of the day, those are all your choices.
If you do not choose, someone else will choose for you.
What's that look like?
And that, again, is a choice. Well, if when you go to work, you can choose to drive safely. You can choose to enjoy yourself or driving, or you can just be ticked off of everybody because they're stupid drivers. We have plenty of those in Colorado, plenty of them. I think we have most of them here. And it's your choice again. It really ticks me off. I'm at Ramstein Air Base one morning, and as I'm coming into work, and I lived in Sembach, about 25 miles away, and as I come into work, a guy cuts me off, an Audi. I was driving BMWs, like I told you, and an Audi driver cuts me off, and boy, does that tick me off so much. I get to work, I park, I walk in. Barb, my administrative assistant, is there. Hi, Chief, how you doing? Sucks. Oh, what happened? And I tell her. Now she's pissed off too. By the end of the day, as I'm heading out, I leave my building to go to my car. I have a couple of airmen whom I guess I know who they are. They know who I am. Hey, Chief, I heard, boy, we're ticked off too, man. That stupid Audi driver this morning. And I'm thinking, wow, this was festered all day long by people I don't even know. I had the choice of letting it tick me off. And now I affected Barb, who affected someone. And now I got, that's how these starts. That's how wars start. I don't even know why, but it was a little tiny thing. Goes back to that little pebble, right? Little tiny thing that somehow I instigated these thoughts in people's minds, and now everybody's pissed off. And in that case, it's wrong. So there again, if you don't choose, okay, that guy just cut me off. I'm okay. I'm cool. Have at it, man. Cool. Glad you got a faster car than me. Hey, that was a great maneuver, man. Wow. Can you do it again? Whatever. Or you can just get ticked off,
Right.
Your choice.
It's your choice.
Always goes back to choice.
You're right. It takes some practice though, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And it takes at least the beginning of it is just the thought to consider that. I have what we call responsibility. We have the ability to respond to anything that happens to us. Anything. As bad as it can be, as good as it can be, you have the ability to respond. Your choice.
Definitely. All right, Chief. Well, I don't want to pay you overtime, so I think our session's almost to a close here. But I do want to end with, if you have any message for any airmen that are listening today, do you have anything you'd want to tell them while you have their ear?
Always, always, always take care of yourself first. Again, 49 years of service. I don't think we do this intentionally, but a lot of times I think we brainwash airmen into thinking that service before self is the first value, and it's not. It's the second one. It follows integrity first. Integrity comes from the word integer, which is, if you remember math at all, it's a whole number. Like I said a while ago, this is Toltec learning. You cannot give what you do not have. Take care of yourself first so you can take care of others. Then we have service before self. But it cannot come first. It does not come first. Take care of yourself first. And you guys do the resiliency training and all that stuff, right? Physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Those things talk about balance. Now, can you do them, or are they all? Do you do a fourth of each every day? Probably not. But do the part that you need. When it's snowing, man, that's my spiritual part. I invest a lot into my spiritual part when it's snowing, because I go out there with nature and I love it, and it generates strength in me. Typically in the morning, like I said, I read the mental part. I'm practicing that. So anyway, depending on the day, you may do more of one than the other. 6 times a week, typically I work out the physical. But the physical part, and you're going to be on my podcast coming up pretty soon when we talk about sharpen the sword. The physical part affects a lot. The mental, sometimes the social, if you're doing it with somebody else. The spiritual, it can, especially when your knee hurts, man, that's spiritual. I'll tell you that. Give it about 40 years, you're going to talk. You're going to know what I'm talking about. But anyway, again, the point is, take care of yourself first. Everybody will tell you that's not the way to do it. That is the right way to do it. Integrity first. Take care of you so that you can take care of others. If you do that, you're going to be way better than where you're at right now, probably.
Awesome. Chief Vasquez, we all love you. We're so blessed to have you in our life. Again, when I think airman, I think of you. I mean, you are an airman through and through, and you propel us to new heights. We definitely stand on the shoulders of giants like you. So I wanted to thank you so much for speaking with me and anyone listening. Hopefully we get a lot of airmen listening, and we can get that Beyond the Little Blue Book published here in the next year, and we can spread even more air power than we already have. So I just wanted to thank you to the listeners, and thank you, Chief Vasquez.
All in.
And we're all in.